questions for Jay, Mr. Turner?
You're welcome, sir.
We appreciate you coming again.
No problem, you guys. If you have any follow-up questions, reach out to me.
So we're gonna continue on with our open session meeting. I do wanna make a comment for public comments, that, this is the time set aside that the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the board, trustees on any topic. Speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes are not donated or transferred from one speaker to another. And the board will not take any action on any item listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to any questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The board welcomes and values input and feedback from the public. Is there anybody who wants to address the board?
I don't know how to do this.
Just talk to them.
I had a friend, I'm Adam, I actually just applied for the director position, so I just wanted to meet you all, say hello, and just see you all here.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, thanks for showing up.
Have you been to the library before?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I've been to 3 of the 6.
Which 3 have you been to?
To Osage Beach, Sunrise Beach, and this one.
The larger branches.
Yes.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, Adam Coutier.
That is me.
Now, too, let's see.
Good kid.
So, is there anything else, Adam?
That's
Okay,
why I'm
all right.
saying, meet you all.
Well, we're just gonna continue on with our new business and discuss, kind of our applicant review criteria. And then we're gonna talk about the sunshine policy that the, committee has, proposed. Is there,
Has that been sent to us, or is that what this is?
That's what this is, and
It's more of an email practice, right?
what's that?
An
email,
email practice,
such,
not
such,
sunshine.
well,
Okay.
Yes, it is about email.
When was this sent?
Well, it wasn't printed out.
Okay.
Gave it to
I was gonna say-
everybody. No, we did not,
Okay.
we did
Okay.
not send that, and this may be antiquated, after the training we just got, so.
Well, I wanted to, notice or make note that I found a sunshine, open meeting and sunshine policy on my computer, a Word document. However, I looked through everything and could not find where it was approved. So I'm thinking it might have been a policy that was unapproved and in the policy, in the procedure to be approved. But I cannot find any, going back to my board minutes, I can't find where it was approved, but I will send it to everyone.
The one you sent us that was in the
No.
form of a resolution.
No, that one was adopted, but this other one might have just been a word.
A bulleted document, it was just a short paragraph bulleted.
No, it's something different.
Okay.
Okay, and I think it may have been a policy that, Mike may have been working on, but I cannot find any place where it was approved, but I will send it out.
Okay.
So that you can get.
okay, so that's the second part of the new business. We kind of jumped ahead. Do we want to continue to discuss the sunshine now and do the criteria afterwards? Is there, a-
Yes, what's fresh?
okay,
Finish it up.
so I would like to make a agenda switch around, since we've been discussing sunshine law, to go ahead and do 2 instead of the 1 for right now, on our new business email sunshine policy. And just continue to discuss the purpose of the email policy that Adam and, did Bill work with you on this?
Yes, we did.
The 2 of you did on
We
this?
worked together on this,
To
yes.
just discuss this, to make, so is there a motion to make that change?
To amend the agenda to discuss new business item 2 first.
First instead of 1.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
May I make a little administrative break? For some reason, I'm not on the internet, or I have very poor signals. Has something changed?
no,
I'm on staff 2.5. That's what I'm supposed to be.
We might just have people.
Okay, all right. It's right there, and I just got a very little signal here.
Okay, so,
okay, so
sunshine policy.
for the sunshine policy, so either Bill or Adam, I don't care, go ahead and just please start. I'm gonna read what you've written here.
Okay,
so, Go ahead.
Bill?
Go ahead, yeah, you got it.
Okay, I'm just gonna read down through it, I guess. I
Okay.
don't know what else to do with that.
Okay,
As the established committee tasked with codifying board email practices for the Camden County Library Board of Trustees. Meeting, it was, so there was some question as to whether we had actually been assigned a task. And I just cited the time in the meeting from the video, and that's what that is. And then it has the link if you want to see where that actually transpired. Within the bounds of sunshine law policies, we find the following. Although the use of email is allowed under sunshine law options, we recommend not using email to make board decisions for the following reasons. Reasons to avoid use of email for library board. Our communication can be unclear, causing unnecessary, distracting, time-consuming, energy-wasting conflicts. Use of email for official business creates a recording transparency complication. How do we arrive at decisions and keep the public informed? It looks like if we are including our custodian, that may be resolved.
Yes.
So that,
Although the part of it that isn't resolved is, generally speaking, the public has no way to know what we're talking about in email, so they would have no way to know whether to request information or not. So we'd have to have some way of publishing it to them.
Best not to do it,
Right.
even though, the custodian has it.
but, okay, so that goes back to the question I had to the gentleman that was trained, Mr. Turner. So, Bill and I are working on this, and we're just kicking this back and forth, going over wording, trying to word it so we can present it to the board, present it to the public, clearly, for clarity reasons, and factual reasons, citations and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot that's going on there, to just be able to present an idea. And so from what I got from Mr. Turner, we could do that and actually include the custodian so that that's a matter of record, and how we got to this page. But that we don't have to have a meeting, an open meeting for that. I mean,
Although we're right now having the open meeting where we reveal everything.
that
to the best of our knowledge.
we've worked on it. If somebody really wants to drill down, they can go to the custodian and request those emails.
Correct.
So that would be, I guess maybe we need to make just a statement that we developed this over email. Just as far as a matter of wording and,
I think you just did.
I think you already
Yes, and it will be on the agenda for the November meeting,
okay,
so that will be an open meeting whenever you decide if you're going to, if the board approves of the policy or not.
all right.
So that will be made public as well, correct?
I just feel like we're getting wrapped around the axle on this, so that's why we're doing this, so that we can, be able to communicate, develop something, bring it to the public. And then also if they want to drill down into it, that record is there.
I kind of think you need to look at this in terms of the olden days. Because in the olden days, before email, before digital, Adam and I would have gotten together in person. We would have hashed this out and produced this document. And it would never become part of the public record until it happened in an open meeting.
But there's no reason you still can't do that.
There is no reason you can't do that.
Correct.
But I'm saying it mitigates against keeping a record of the emails because the emails just replace that personal meeting. I think individual emails just between two people really don't amount to a public record.
It's not a quorum.
Not a
You
quorum.
two do not represent a quorum. If there were three of you, that would represent a quorum, okay?
Did Mr. Turner just say that if that happens, it still needs to go to the custodian of record? He did.
He recommended it,
Okay,
yes.
all right, I just want to make sure.
He did technically say if we're discussing library business, it should be part of the public record.
People's business.
But as we learned from Mr. Turner, nobody really knows what they're doing in terms of the sunshine law.
Well, I think they know, he just can't give legal advice.
Yes, which means you can't really give any guidance, really.
So is this, I'm gonna point blank so how do you want to communicate to each other? Is this a question to me about my suggestions, you're commenting, and I take this probably that you're kind of aiming at me in a nice way. That no vote may be taken via email and best avoid to implying, hinting, and suggesting, insinuating, and inferring a vote. So is that the intent of the board, is to not share ideas within the group of us in an email? And we just don't think on, we just think on our own, and then when we come to open session, then we all discuss it and not have time to think about maybe how we're gonna present or prepare for the meeting versus having an open discussion on the email prior to the meeting so that our meeting and discussion is kept to a minimum of minutes. And we present more as a unified body than as an individual talking out their thoughts and processes as we go. Can you explain that to me and how you want to do that? And if that's the case, then how am I, as president of this board, supposed to communicate with all of you? I don't think, the only thing I can think of that probably hit a nerve was when the inferring of a vote, when I asked about filling out for the posting, the 1, 2, and the 3 about my email and so forth and so on, which is old business. But that's the only thing that I can think of that this is all about, unless you were all offended by the fact that I'm trying to stimulate conversation in your heads on your own time, in your business,
Not at all,
to bring here.
not at
So
all. Not-
I
not
just
on my
want some
behalf.
feedback from the board on how, as a president, you want me to communicate with you all then.
I think I have an opinion about this because I gather some of you are retired and I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I know. So I have a job to do and I'm overwhelmed by all of the email communications. I can't look at email moment to moment every day. So I think we're really trying to do email more in terms of doing the public work without doing it in public. I think in the intent of things, we're just trying to do too much in email. There was an occasional, I saw John a while ago, you forwarded an email about the Kansas City article. That was one of those general interest FYI kind of things, which I think is fine. But when you get into discussing how we're gonna do this and what we're gonna do about that, that's becomes more public library business, and we probably just should not do that. As far as having a unified voice, I think the whole reason there's 5 of us is so we don't have a unified voice. I don't think a unified voice is important, otherwise there'd only have to be one of us.
Well, and if you are taking everything that I said in those emails as influence, you're mistaken. I think that my intent is to, I'm just clearing the air.
Yeah.
Because I am not telling anybody what to do, how to vote. My whole thought process was, because I know some people work and some of us have more time. And I don't know that I required anybody to respond immediately. It was done over a period of time. Not everybody responds immediately. Some do, some don't. Some don't respond at all much. So we all have our own parts to play in this, I think. But I guess as I would like you to then help me define what you want me to do as president of this board and how to communicate with you all.
Well, can I say one thing? I think Bill may have hit the nail on the head. We're a new board. We're all getting to know each other. And by communicating as much as we have been, I don't think there was an intent here to influence anyone. I don't think there was an intent to invoke a vote of any kind. I think it was just an attempt to share information. That's the way I see it. But I also believe, kind of going back to the comment I think Bill made, is we need to have these kinds of conversations looking at each other one-on-one so that we understand one another. It is so difficult to communicate everything you want to say in an email. If you're looking at someone, direct, you understand how they're reacting to you, you get the body language and that type of thing, and you can right then and right there, resolve an issue or further attempt to get clarification or whatever. And that's what we're supposed to be doing in a board meeting, okay? So Vicky, I wouldn't take any of these personally.
not.
I don't think the intent of this was for that at all, because
No.
in all honesty, I'll be real honest with you. I can look at this thing and say, well, some of the stuff that I said to you guys might also be looked at that way. But, you know, I think this is probably a good guideline, okay? The only concern that I would have is that, you know, if you're trying to set this up as a hard, fast rule, the only thing I would say is sometimes there are emergency situations, as he talked about, where we may not want to have to get together. It should never be a policy to take a vote by email or by telephone or whatever, unless there's an emergency situation. For instance, we have had floods, or we've had water damage created by broken pipes, and the director needs to spend X amount of money, and he needs to do it right then and there, and it exceeds the amount of money that he's authorized to spend. And he wants to get approval from the board to move forward with that. Unless we put it in the policy that in emergency situations, it's up to the director to make those decisions to be, you know, clarified, you know, by the board later on, that's fine. The only other way for him to do it or her to do it is to get your approval, and that is to do that immediately, either by telephone or by email. So that would be the only exception that I would like to see, possibly do something like these guidelines. That's all I.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, we're kind of all over the same, I think I left off at number 3 when I was reading this, so it's on public record.
Sure, go
So
ahead.
could I finish it up?
Absolutely.
Use of email prolongs discussion and simulates daily board meetings. Board participation is based on monthly meetings and not everyday interaction. We have no rules of order like Robert's rules or email exchanges. There is nobody in charge of each conversation and no rules to end discussion and vote. This is again under the reasons to avoid use of email, just to bring us back on page. We recommend use of email only for informal communication and individual investigation, such emails may lead to addition of an open meeting agenda item, but must be used for communication with the quorum. Recommendations.
Must not be used.
Must not be used for communication with a quorum. Recommendations in detail are as follows. Proposed email solution, and it's 1 November 23 is when Bill and I finished up on this. Emails are communicated one-to-one for individual clarification, communication with a subcommittee for assigned tasks. And that again is kind of antiquated after the training, because if we have a committee of 2, it's a subcommittee, it has to be, I guess it's, as long as we have the custodian get that communication, if we're assigned as a subcommittee, we're good to go. We can.
No, that's what he said. I kind of disagree with him.
Okay. Okay.
I think when I email you, Adam, it's like walking over and saying hi.
Yeah.
It's not something that's public. It's gonna become public, when a committee works, it's gonna become public knowledge when we present it to the committee, to the total board.
Okay.
So I don't think we're keeping anything secret. We're just trying to make something happen as a committee.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we were working on the director thing, where we were combining the 2 documents, we were on the phone and just emailing back and forth. This sentence would sound better this way or this way, and then we'd go back and forth. And it was a work session between the 2 of us on a committee.
Mhm.
And then the final document was presented to the public. What we were working on was presented to the public. So if you're just working back and forth, you're not violating any sunshine law. You're just doing your work, you're getting a document ready for presentation to the board and to the public. So there again, you know, the use of email in that regard is warranted, I think. You know, between the 2 people, it's not quorum, and you're just working on a document.
And the document, once submitted, is subject to questions from other board members
Oh, yeah.
and the response, and the
Exactly.
appropriate response from people who put the document together.
Exactly.
Well, and I have to say too, I prefer, not always, but email keeps the emotion out of it. I've been told that, just to keep the emotion out of it. So, I guess I still need some direction on how, as president, that you all elected me to be, how you want me to communicate with the board. As board is the role of the library trustees, I mean, we are always to organize, we do the bylaws, we inform interests and needs of the community, so, is it something we need to discuss then to have more meetings? And we have 2 a month instead of just the one in order to, and for how long, and how long is it gonna take us to get to know each other? And how much time do you want to spend? So,
I think what happened, and it's nobody's fault, but I'll pick on the job description one. We kind of approved the job description for the director back in September, I think, maybe it was October, it was a while ago. And then we realized we had this other document that hadn't been integrated in. And then we created a new document with a new proposed description. And then when it got emailed out, everybody felt like they had to respond to it. And it became like three different kind of threads going on.
but that is the board of trustees discussing and putting their thoughts in about the document,
And
correct?
I think that part shouldn't have happened. I think that part should have waited until an actual meeting where somebody presented the final document and then we discussed it in public.
We
Either
did
that or the committee bring it back in pieces. In other words, we've gotten together, we put this together, we'd like for you to take a look at it again. Do you agree or disagree? Where do you agree or where do you disagree? If you disagree, we'll take it, we'll go back and we'll try to blend back in some of these newer recommendations. And those are the kinds of things that I'd have to agree with Bill that should take place in a meeting, in an open meeting.
So, yeah, I had made the remark in the one email that we should take this document. So I gotta back up just a second, and then I'll go back to that. I just wanted to say, I appreciate the direction that you give to think about things and and the material disseminated, and I greatly appreciate that. Hope it doesn't stop. I just felt like we were walking on the edge of vulnerability. And so that, it had nothing to do with what you're doing, or it's all of us. I think we're walking a fine edge with that email situation, and I wanted to keep us out of any kind of situation.
And all of that was good, and it is all documented because I emailed Vicki to make sure that that was all taken as we're
Yeah.
supposed to do.
Yeah, so I may have overreacted. I'll take that. I'll take that.
I'd say the other
So the other, I'm sorry,
Go
just
ahead.
to get back to, what I said is, I think we can kind of tune ourselves into a rhythm where if we have a document like that, and it's finally presented to the board, we do a line by line. Somebody is given the assignment of taking notes as to what everybody says. Takes that document, one or two people takes that document and works those requests in, and then you represent it, and we keep doing that until everybody is pretty well satisfied with the document, and then it becomes policy.
Well, and the initial part is that I think as part of the job, the description that I've read about the president of the board of trustees is that it's okay to set committees to do those things. And then we bring it and it's feedback. I think then if we're gonna do it this way, then we need to, all be prepared. I've said this in my messages because I felt in past meetings that people weren't prepared. We need to limit the discussion. If I need to use my phone for a timer to 15 minutes to start with, and then go from there. I mean, to spend a length of time on one subject is, I'm sorry, just a little bit over the top in my own opinion, i.e. the air conditioning situation last meeting. 45 minutes was a little bit much, and it's my responsibility also to keep us on task. So I allow that to go because of respect for those of you who may working and didn't have time to refer and look at, but I think if we're gonna do this, then we just need to set a time limit of how long you're gonna need to work on it, and the committee can decide how long, and then inform the board that we'll have this by this and such a date and have it done. Otherwise, I guess we're working for the public, and if we continue to go back and push further out and push further out and push further out, that to me is a concern. And I admit that I'm a complete get it done kind of person to do whatever, but I don't think I've pushed any of that on anybody, but what you described is that task I gave to you and to Denise initially. And then you brought it back to the board. And that next meeting, we met at the radio building for a couple of reasons. And there was a discussion that, so timing is important for everybody. If you got an hour to give, you got 2 hours to give, maybe that's a discussion we need to have to get everybody's idea on point of how long we should be discussing it. So the expectations are everybody knows and not everybody is taking advantage of anybody else in that regard.
Well, maybe what we need to do is to take a look at, what we're trying to put on the agenda and not to put too many tasks on one agenda and stretch these things out. Establish priorities. It seems like to me that there were several people who had several things that they wanted to accomplish, and then all of a sudden they just blew up, okay? And so everybody wanted to accomplish all this stuff, and we had a lot of other things going on. Well, some of this stuff doesn't have to be done right now. It can be pushed out, okay? And maybe what we need to do is be a little more methodical in how we make those considerations. That in itself can reduce your time. As far as just an example of the air conditioning, the heating issue, you know what? As president of the board or even a board member, we can always call for a vote. In other words, we can always say, is there any more questions that we haven't already discussed? Let's make a decision, okay? We don't have to just keep going on and on and on and on and on. That's controlled by you or can be controlled by another board.
I guess I'd like to support John on what he's saying. This is a very old organization. It's been around for decades. And I don't see anything that urgent to change. I'm in favor of changing some things, but there's not an urgency to it. We can work methodically through the things we want to do. Most of what the library board is about is pretty mundane. It's reviewing the financials. Occasionally we have a big crunch on things like the budget, but other than that, we don't have a lot that has to happen.
This is very unusual with 4 new board members, and I think that's creating a lot of the emails as well.
Right.
Well, unless we're gonna meet on a 2 times a month, then I guess I'm interested in entertaining me and what your thoughts are and how to get to know each other better to where we sit
I
and
think,
discuss it.
I think that we've been meeting, 2 times a month out of necessity because we're all saddled with quite a bit. And I think that's gonna taper off with time as we get some of the things behind us. And so, yeah, I still think that if we could develop things as a board and do it and get in a rhythm of doing it until it's finalized. Which, we did that with the posting quite well, I think. So I think we need to keep going with the job description until nobody has any new input. That's my opinion.
And I'm not opposed to it. Unless anyone else can't do it, and there may be sometimes when it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, and so you can only, if you can't put in, say, 2 hours for a meeting, and I don't think at this point we necessarily need to start looking at scheduling, 2 meetings a month. I think 1 meeting a month for 2 hours, and then we'll, I think, kind of move from there.
Be nice to get to that, yes.
Yes.
Once we get some stuff behind us.
Absolutely. And again, if something comes up where we have to meet more frequently, well, we can always schedule those special meetings. But again, how important are some of these things that we're trying to, push to the front of the line? I mean, do they really need to be pushed to the front of the line? Let's take a look at some of those things that we feel like need to be at the front of the line. Let's establish those priorities, and then we can move forward with the rest of it.
Well, so this is not black and white then, this is gray, like the sunshine law.
Yeah, but I think these are guidelines, okay, and I think these are good to have, okay?
We aren't done yet, and I didn't get
That's
down
fine.
through all of them yet, and, I am making notes, as far as, like there's one here where you include there's two places here where we could include the custodian, if we're concerned about the value of it to the public.
Well, I asked Mark to make me a library email,
Okay,
that way it's automated,
Yeah,
and it
I think,
doesn't clutter up my email.
yeah, I wanna do the same,
okay.
do the same, yeah.
Denise,
I'll do this now.
John?
Nope.
Okay.
So email may never be used to replace, public discussion. Email can be used to submit agenda items to the board president, and allow the president to prioritize them. No consensus may be sought via email. No vote may be taken, and Vicky already went through that one. The library director or assistant director may distribute meeting agenda and related materials to a quorum of board members in preparation for the monthly meeting. The board president may distribute materials to all board members as long as no decision or discussion of materials takes place. And that, so, yeah, I'd like to open that to some discussion and make any notes to get that right, to fine tune that, because it seems like it needs tuning. So,
Well, you have strong personalities on this board, and we all have our probably type A personalities, and everybody has their own thoughts, so I'm open to, since you elected me to be, the runner of things, so to speak, you maybe should identify what you want to hear from me and what you don't. And as far as the related materials to the quorum of board members, so, that I question whether or not it should go, is the quorum all of us, or is just the three of the board? Is that what you mean by the number 6?
I think 3 is a quorum.
Yeah, three plus,
So-
three or above.
So the distribute the meeting agenda, then you're saying should just go to 3 of the board members and not to everyone?
No.
Oh. So I don't know why it needs to be related materials to a quorum, why shouldn't it just be the
Yeah,
related materials?
it should
to all board
technically say
members.
to all board members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Just
it's
go away with quorum.
yeah, all, a quorum of, and change that to all. So, in number 7, the board president may distribute materials to all board members as long as, no decision or discussion of materials takes place. I would still, sit strong on no decision, but, discussion, I guess, with the custodian in tow, if there's discussion about those in. Well, I guess the custodian's gonna get those materials anyway,
Not
so.
necessarily, I mean, it needs to be sure that the custodian does get that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
That the custodian is included.
So no decision of materials take place and discussion is, custodian is included in distribution and discussion.
Yeah.
Always, as we.
There should never be a decision, made, or never should a vote be taken.
Yeah, so,
Except for emergency situations, as I discussed earlier.
yeah, so the concern I'd have there is if we ever get to a new topic and we discussed it on email, the public would never know about that discussion. they would never know unless we do something proactive to make it available to them.
Again, it's a time-consuming thing. I guess my thoughts are, if you're sitting, at home or wherever you're doing, Bill, and John's in Jeff City, but he's bored with whatever he's doing up there, he can think, well, Vicky did say we should think about these things. Adam's sitting out in the fishing boat, so, you know, if it's a thought process to, make you consider to think about things to come and present, I guess the concern I have is, you know, we are new, we are getting to know each other. I don't know how else you're gonna share ideas unless there's certain verbiage that I shouldn't use when I send something out. This is, unless I preface it for discussion only, which, I mean, if that's what y'all need, I'm happy to accommodate. But the expectation is that, you know, we do come, and most of the things that we are discussing, we are gonna be discussing in front of the public at this meeting. So I guess I'm a little concerned about the fact that we don't discuss anything in an email discussion, by our board discussion meeting, to come up with thoughts that are available, ready to present to the public. We've cleaned out the closet of the cobweb, so to speak, is my thoughts on this. And we're more,
You can tell that Ike was frustrated by the whole concept of sunshine law because he's used to being a working person who works with other people and has discussions on the side. And then he comes to a public meeting to present it. But I don't think that's the spirit of the sunshine law. I think the spirit of the sunshine law is we discuss these things in an open meeting.
we can't, the way this, I'm sorry, John, the way this board is discussing things, it's this long. So I guess
I know.
the thought process is to shorten so we can move on to a different agenda item. And if I need to discuss and allow 15 minutes for discussion, then that's what we should do. And then we should come to a vote that this is what we do and we move forward. I mean, the job of the trustee, according to the role of Library of Trustees, is to make sure that we're entrusted the welfare of the community, that they're there. So, we're not to, I don't know, we're just trying to learn, I guess, and maybe that's the problem. It's just taking time to learn.
That's a true statement. We are all learning. We're not only learning each other, but a lot of you who are not familiar with this board, okay, and or the library functions, are in the process of learning that. If we need to make any changes to this, Adam, what if we just say, as long as no decisions take place, period, discussions, should.
Number 7?
Down number 7.
Yeah.
And then say discussion of materials, should take place, during board meetings.
So,
You can send out anything you want,
okay.
but maybe what the rest of us need to do is not respond. You know, if truly what you're sending it out for, Vicky, is to be thought-provoking, then maybe what we should do is thought-provoke and keep quiet until we come to the meeting and then discuss it. You know, we don't have to
Yeah,
share our
yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
prior to the meeting, and I think that's where we're getting ourselves caught up into
Yeah.
all of this.
We end up trying to.
Because we feel like we
convince
have
one
to
another.
share, you know, and we
Well, it's
don't
just
really need to share.
the lack of being prepared at a meeting. So,
No, you can still send out your thoughts on things that maybe we ought to be looking at, but the rest of us don't have to be talking about it until we get to the meeting.
I don't think I've asked anybody to do anything to respond back to any of that. That's all on you guys.
I thought you referred to it appropriately. It's all our A-type, of personality. I feel like I know that somebody needs to know what I'm thinking
Well,
before I get to the meeting.
If someone else
important.
wants to take my position, I'm happy to give it up and remain my time as just a board member. If you all think you can do it better.
I hope that you're not taking this personally. I don't think it's.
I'm really not, but,
But it sounds like you are, so
well,
please
no.
don't. Just please don't. I mean, it's not intended that way.
I'm not, but, you know, as long as, I mean, the way it's written here, it's like, wow, right? So I like the next one though, that each member should be vigilant in helping members adhere to the guidelines.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you know, if it sounded curt, and I apologize, or if not, I'm trying not, I just, and final enforcement of the policy is responsibility of the board president, so you want me to final enforce, and then you're chopping my hands off a little on what I should send out and what I shouldn't send out, or I should just send this out, maybe I'll just preface things, I'm being facetious now,
Okay.
that, you know, this is all for discussion. Y'all do what you gotta do when you wanna do it, but just be prepared at the meeting to discuss it. And then that's how I can drop it. I don't have a problem with that, in fact.
You know,
I just, I guess I'm a teacher by nature. And, not that you're all, my students, but I just want to keep us all thinking along and widening our thoughts about it by looking at other documents to read that helps everybody kind of identify their own thoughts in their own head at that time. That's my only intent.
yes, have no problem. Personally, I have no problem with that,
So-
and would encourage that you keep doing that. My concerns with the whole email situation is that we were getting, close to, creating a problem for ourselves, and I don't want that for us.
Yeah.
Spectrum
Almost went down.
and
With the number of people.
I was, that, I sent out that curt email, with spirit of number 8.
Can we say this, can we just make a recommendation on A, take final out?
Oh,
Instead of final enforcement, just enforcement of the policy is the responsibility of the board president. Okay? And that's the policy after it's been, and I move to,
wait a minute. Hang on, sorry. Each board member should do something to help each member secure these governments. Oh, okay. Yes, I'm good now. I forgot. My mind had an older version of that thing. Okay, yes, got it. Sorry, I had to get up. So just enforcement of this policy is the responsibility of the board president.
and, I mean, is this something that the board wants now, for Adam to bring back to us,
Yeah.
for final approval at the next board meeting?
That sounds good.
Excellent, okay?
Okay.
So it is going to be added to the agenda items for the November regular meeting.
Yes, and you're gonna send out that.
Yeah, send it out.
That policy thing that you
Yes.
found.
The
Yeah,
open meetings and stuff,
yeah,
because we are going to need this sunshine law policy.
okay.
Also too, might behoove us to find out, I mean, there is a policy, on the Attorney General
Yes,
website.
yes.
Maybe you can include that,
Mhm.
and either that or any other, what's the county got,
I'll find
you know?
out.
Well, you have the,
I can
and you
send
have the,
examples.
Yeah, send examples, okay?
well, it's the article that I sent out about the sunshine law. Somebody has it. Vicki, did you get that and then send it to the guys?
That was the 10 thing.
The 20 question things plus the article that I had taken off and
I
given to
think you
somebody.
sent it to everyone.
No, I don't remember taking the sunshine law one. I don't think I sent that one.
Well, I'm just talking about the policy at this point,
Just to-
so, you know,
I do.
policy is not gonna include all of those items anyway, so.
Well, I guess I would just, my final comments to this is that the library trustees, we maintain core knowledge about this position that we all are playing. And that we, you know, we follow the bylaws of the library, the services, information needs and interests of the community and how to effectively work in our group. That we just stay up on National Library Trend standards and development, terminology, library law, anything that affects all of us. I mean, we're here, it says here is the role of the board is to support growth of library services to the community, remembering that the goal is not to save the community money, but to spend funding wisely for efficient and effective library service. advocate for excellence and adequate, obey all library laws, and devise a strategic plan, which that's a whole nother subject, but I think it's just, it's interesting to read the requirements, if you haven't, on the role of the library trustees from the Missouri state law. John, you've got experience doing this for a long time, the rest of us do not, so it actually just gives you some other food for thought of probably where I have gotten some of my food for thought that I've sent out to all of you. So is there a motion to close this subject and move to the next agenda item?
It's going to be on the next,
We don't need to, we can move on.
We can move on,
Okay, the
okay,
next
so, do we need to close the door for the agenda? I guess we don't, it doesn't matter. So, the next new business is to establish director applicant review criteria. Now, I will preface this with saying, no names, no ages, no personal information, period. This is, we get to talking about applicants and I just
We're
don't
not talking about applicants, we're talking
talk
about
about
criteria.
criteria. Okay,
Okay,
I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
I do have a question. The criteria, is that not what we're talking about in the job posting? Or is that considered requirements or?
It's partly, I
Okay.
mean, we want somebody who's able to manage people, so that's a criteria.
I think it's an individual criteria, Vicki, that I ask everybody to kind of look at their own thoughts and feelings about what they want to see from the community. You know, and
This is criteria for the interview or evaluating each person after the
that's
interview?
what we're looking at. It's
This
kind of
is
an overview of,
it's a yardstick that we're gonna use to evaluate the candidates.
that's a good way to say it.
Okay.
Vicki sent out an email, which I thought was a good one, that kind of, excuse me, had a list of how other people do the whole process of hiring. And it seems like most of them did it with a subcommittee. They didn't have the whole board interview every candidate.
And that was, for the, and if I did preface that, I'm sorry about that, but that is usually for public. And my sources there, full disclosure, I have talked to a couple HR directors in other areas of the, Missouri, libraries to identify how their hiring practices go and their criteria. And the ones I chose were actually just bigger libraries because there just was what's on top of my head. And so they have a board of 7, 8 people, 9 people, because they're bigger facilities. And so they did task it out to a subcommittee. And the subcommittee then sometimes would include, managers, branch people that actually are gonna work with the new person, get their thoughts on what they want for what they want to see. They work in the library, what they want to see in a director, what their criteria would be. Like I said, the public is the part that we need to find the best person for the community. And how, we know the culture here. They know the culture here, probably better than we do because they work here and they are dealing with the public people all the time. So that was the discussion that I had with the HR director in Kansas City and St. Louis. Basically, they said the same things. It's a real difficult thing. It's hard to find. You have to see what's best for the community. Look at what you've already got in your library. What kind of things can they bring to our library that we don't already have? I mean, we are very lucky. We have a really good system here already. There's always room for other things, but that was the thoughts that they threw that to the subcommittee because the subcommittee was involved with some of the board members, but also a few from the other branches of that particular district.
Well, one of the things we need to consider too is, in our own minds, where do we personally see the library in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What is, with the way technology is progressing, what is going to happen to the library? What will it become? Is it still going to be a bastion for the community to get together and rally behind? Or are we going to become a kiosk where someone puts in their order and they get an ebook sent to them via computer? Where do we see the library?
Yeah, do we become a catalog store or an actual?
Yeah,
brick and mortar?
or do we become a community, draw, where we have different programs that will draw the community in?
I think that's one of those discussions that is so big that we haven't had time to get to it.
Well, no, when we're discussing a director, for example, I went over, Mr. Davis' resume,
We're not
and
supposed to
at
talk.
the time,
No names, just
Um,
for documents.
well, there was a previous director.
I know, but we don't need to.
But his strengths were technology from the time that he started working in the library.
Mhm.
And what it seemed that the board was looking for and the library was someone to, bring new technology to the library, to bring it into the 21st century. And he did that. We're I've been researching what other libraries are doing, what their strategic plans are, and they're way behind what we're doing here already. So, okay, we have, our technology, area covered very well. What do we want this new director to do? Where do we see the library going? And that should be, one of the major things we're looking at in a new director. What is this person gonna bring to us that's going to, kick us into the next phase of development? I don't, that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think I don't disagree with you. I just don't think we've had time to be together to have any unified thoughts about that.
No, but each of
See-
us has our own view.
I know, and
We
that's the
don't, we
problem.
don't, I know, but each of us will say, well, I'd like to see this in the director, and I'd like to see this, I'd like to see this. And we get all of our ideas together, and that's the person that we want to bring into the library who's gonna, kickstart us into the next phase.
That's where I was thinking we each develop 5 questions. So that, and we each get a round of 2 questions to ask where, and then you have 5 questions handy so that there's redundancy. And if your question that you plan to ask is redundant, you can move to something else. But
Did you get your questions from everybody, or just me and John?
Just you and John.
So you two haven't made your questions yet that Vicki asked you
I'm
to
not,
submit.
because we really haven't resolved the first question, which is how are we going to interview these people? Kind of what's in my mind.
I think that's all discussed in closed session. I mean,
No, I'm not,
No.
I'm not talking
you're
about,
talking about phone interviews or,
I'm not talking about, what do we have, maybe 20 applications so far?
Yeah, but we're not going to interview all of them.
Exactly. What I see happening is establishing some very fundamental criteria and assigning a numerical code to each of these applicants and come up with the top 3. And the top 3 are maybe the ones we actually pursue.
Exactly.
But we haven't we haven't arrived at that point yet. If we arrived at that point, then I'd be interested maybe in
Well,
submitting some questions.
As of right now, there are, probably more than half of these resumes that we could discard.
Yeah, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna pick the top 3
Or the top 5.
or whatever.
or however.
Right. Well, I thought that's what the purpose of establishing the criteria was. I think that's exactly what you're
Well,
asking for, Bill.
Yeah.
You're asking for us to set up a criteria of categories, of different things that we expect in a library director.
But that doesn't excuse you from the fact that you haven't done your due diligence and turned in questions.
Well, we already decided that that's not a requirement. We don't have to submit our answers to her emails.
No, she asked you to submit
I
questions.
know, yeah.
so I'm gonna interject here. just to keep the flow going. With the categories, since I'll throw mine out here. Some things that I just thought of categories is that, when reviewing, I'm asking myself, will their experiences fit into our community and a culture? I'm asking, I'm looking at, lengths of stays, why are they switching? Is there a cover letter? What some of the library successes, that they document, presentation skills. I'm interested in how they present, if they have communicating style, facial expressions, leadership, and I'm also curious about, we have a lot already, so what can they bring to us at our library, to add to our greatness that we have already? Their creativity, their vision, integrity, the influence of presentation skills, are they gonna fit into the community? I guess there's some things that I've been thinking about are my categories to look at. Length of stay, are they, gonna be here for a while, or are they just working to elevate themselves and they're on a path and that they haven't received their path yet? Their education, how involved are they in the community? Do they belong to, lots of different, organizations? Those are kind of some of the criteria, category things that I was looking at.
And how well written are their resumes? How did they put them together? Are they disorganized? Are they, misspell, are there misspells? Are they using,
Do they know about spell check yet?
there, and there, or, what I mean?
We can't talk about that, we've had enough with our spell check right there, Chris, I'm sorry.
But I
No, but
think,
if you're applying.
No,
for a
no,
job,
I
make
just-
sure everything's perfect.
I'm not, but his comment, was, and the giggle was, we're looking at those perfections that we're not perfect at
So
either.
I think
That's just my thought there.
resume, cover letter, that can be one topic that everything falls under. Did they provide both things we asked for and the quality of?
Well, what does the cover
the
letter
ability
tell
to
you?
Write it and.
What does the cover letter usually say?
I think it's not so much about the cover letter, it's about following the directions.
Exactly.
They didn't follow the directions because it said
Yes.
to apply successfully.
Yes.
That was my thought, but I don't really know if you're asking my thought.
And some people are old school,
Write your name and date on the
that have
test.
to have a cover letter. Some people are not old school and it doesn't matter. Some people are, dictated on dates and times and da. So in education, do they have what we want? We're looking at everybody in that regard, so,
I kind of think everything you're saying is really good, but hard to quantify.
It is.
Like, how does somebody fit into the culture of Lake of the Ozarks? Do they have to be a
these
a
are,
Republican or what?
No, you
no,
can't do that.
Yes. Yes.
but these are, this whole
I'm not-
purpose for I'm sorry. The whole purpose for the categories was to, help identify things that will be all discussed in the interview process, right?
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with you, but I'm just saying they have to be, it has to be fairly mechanical and cut and dried to use it to evaluate all of the applicants. It can't be a feeling. It has to be pretty much, do they have this skill?
Well, and keep in mind, how we discuss it, because, equal rights and rights of everybody is out there, so, we
And
look
that's
at
why
the
it has
whole
to be
overall
very
picture.
cut and dried and clear,
But-
not a feeling.
Fair enough.
I don't think you can get to feelings, and I don't think you can get to some of the things that you'd like to get to until you actually have your interview, whether it's your first interview or your second, or, which is possibly your final interview. You won't know those things, and then even after the
I
interview,
agree.
if they're great in interviewing, you're not gonna know until they get here and start doing the job.
Correct.
But, if we wanna create, categories, okay, that's what I attempted to do, Vicky's request. I came up with 5 categories: experience, managing, ambassador for the library service, strategic planning, and personal characteristics. Those are the 5 categories that I put in. And under those categories, then I put things that I thought might be appropriate in those categories to look at. And I'm not gonna go through all of it, but I just, for instance, experiences, education, whether they've been a previous library director, their knowledge of library practices, their thorough knowledge of supervising principles and methods, including goal setting, budget preparations, administration, those kinds of things. Have an average communication skill, both written and oral. Okay, these are all things that we would like to have. We won't know some of these things until we get to our questions. That's why our questions have got to be important. And I think we've got a good list of questions. I think what we need to do is identify X number of questions. First, we need to decide how we're going to interview. Are we going to interview? We're going to select the number of people to interview. Let's just say, for instance, we're going to select 6. Okay. Then we do I'm going to recommend that we do them, if they're local, they can come in and we can do a face-to-face. If they're not, we can do a Zoom or whatever. If you want to do them all by Zoom, I think, that would be fine too. If you don't want to do a face-to-face until you get to the second point, that's fine too. We need to decide that. Then we need to decide which questions we want to ask for the first interview. And then, are there appropriate questions to ask for the second interview? Or are there some carryover that we want based on what we heard the first time? So that's why I think what Vicki did as far as asking for us to establish a criteria and to come up with some questions. And that's why I did what I did. And I think, did I send them? I haven't sent the criteria yet.
I think that's criteria, but I have your questions.
You have my question. Did I send those questions to everybody? I thought I did.
I think you did.
So, look at them, and look at the other folks that have submitted things, and we need to be making some pretty quick decisions on how we're going to do this. We've got some great candidates. We really do have some great candidates, and and some of those that we may want to interview may have already gone on to something else by the time we get to them. That's why we need to have probably 6 candidates, initially.
Well, and that brings,
5 or 6.
that's my concern is that, as the time passes, I kind of thought a lot about this, making a decision about a director. We do lose qualified people, that submitted the resume weeks ago, right? In my opinion, delaying our decision, especially without any contact from this board, dismisses the feelings of our applicants. And I'm always about, they're the public as well. So, to make that, I mean, for everybody, I mean, if there's somebody that we think wants to come, I mean, there are several, thoughts on, if they're gonna move, if they're gonna set up stuff, if they've gotta do this, I think out of respect, for those variables, to not decide immediately, but we do need to make some decisions on some of that, and then what is to keep us from delaying the decision? Why are we delaying the decision? So we have, so many applicants. Some of the applicants are, feasible, some are not feasible, some are whatever, however, right? So then I move in, that's my feelings on that part of it, and I don't really want to go into a whole lot more detail. But I also wanted to discuss, agreed on, first, I think we need to decide the ones that we want to and the ones that we don't. And then I wanted to identify, I'm not good at writing sample letters to send out and how those are worded. So I made, and then who's to sign them. Since the applications have been coming to Vicki and I feel like that both of us should be doing the signing for these. I have made a couple ideas for sample letters they're all different. Every one of them I made is a little bit different. The last 2 are basically the same. Short, sweet, but not closing any doors.
Just read and pass on.
Oh,
Just read and pass
so
on.
we just pass the whole stack around?
They're all different.
They're all different.
They're all worded a little bit different because,
I thought we had kind of decided not to turn anybody down yet.
we're just discussing
Okay.
how we will do that, if we decide to do that and when. And then the sample letters that I wrote up to see your thoughts on if it's okay or it's not okay, or how to deduct, and then, and so that was the email, and the email that I sent to all of you did have some discussions on the back of those, the library guards, business daily on interview questions and stuff, and then acceptable, unacceptable interview questions to put in your thoughts, but this is about afterwards, I mean, I guess I could have waited, but it's an open session, so I'm just talking about sample letters that I've worded to get a different idea, because it will be, changed as well, depending on the qualities of, whoever we're interviewing.
Shouldn't,
Well,
So,
I mean, the rejection letter should be the same to, all candidates.
well, it's the, I'm all thanking them for their interest, for sure.
Oh, sure.
But the ones who don't have the, criteria that we're looking for, then I just identify that that's not exactly the criteria that we're looking at this point in time. And good luck with their search. I mean, it's a nice way of,
I kind of think you should keep it all positive, and, thank you for your interest. We've reviewed all the candidates and we picked our top ones. And unfortunately, you're not.
if
in
you
that group.
if you want just a regular letter, that's fine. So then my question comes to, wow, we've got, 6, 7 great candidates, but we're down to a couple. And so those couple are, well, yeah, they'd be great in the community, they'd be wonderful in the community, but they still don't have the exact criteria that we've all talked about, right? And so those 2 letters then, to me, are a little bit different to write to them, because, you're talking to them, and we've already interviewed, because these were like maybe 2 selection candidates. And so we're like, okay, so we're not real sure of them, but maybe we want to give it 3 more weeks to see if anybody else comes in. Because the impression, the pushback I talked about was that to wait on these kinds of people. And so then how do we, they still may be in the running, but we're gonna take 2 more weeks. I just think our communication to our applicants should be respectful, positive, like you said, Bill, exactly, but informative of at least where we're at in our process. And so there are some that are, short processes versus longer processes, because their resumes are shorter, their experience is different, they have bigger resumes to look at. And then the other kind of thought too that I was having is, who, we haven't talked about the references and how that works. So, and I didn't put any of that out to the board, so your thoughts on how we do references would be a thought, to discuss, I guess, too.
I don't think we ought to be looking at references unless we feel like we needed to.
Until we're ready,
I think
okay,
you can go through the process and identify those that you want, and probably those people that become your final candidates, the ones that you want to interview in person or whatever, unless there's some other ones that you have some questions about that maybe a reference could push you one way or the other. But I don't think a lot of them don't really want, especially if it has to do with letting, as you mentioned earlier, their boss is finding out, their current boss is finding out that they're applying somewhere else. So you gotta be kind of careful with some of that.
I agree,
So
I
you could check references on those that made the second interview.
Well, that are the final 2 or final 3 that we want. And, I would make those, I wouldn't check those references until maybe we determine, the 1 or 2 that we actually want to make the job offer to. And then do that as a final portion of that.
The references might help us decide between the 2.
And you may, or there may be one that just stands out that,
Yeah.
is enough that
But again, our intent for this meeting is just to come up with a criteria of how we evaluate these applicants that we have already, not that.
There's another thing to consider too, with, all of the resumes that we've received. Are there any resumes that maybe are not, meeting the criteria for the director? But there may be another position in the library that this person would qualify for if they were interested. Because there's somebody in there who is very IT heavy, and, if we were looking for someone in the makerspace area in Osage Beach, something to consider. So, I don't know.
We're not doing away with the resumes, we're holding them, and if at some point, we've got an open job, and we decide, we're looking for candidates, you can always go back and, go through that, which is what you're saying.
When I
There are some
worked
good
in
candidates.
a reference lab, our HR department would be receiving resumes all the time. And when we needed a person in our department, we would go through the resumes to see if there was somebody there. It saved us a lot of time. We didn't have to post the job for one. You get these resumes and you find somebody.
We do that.
You do that, you save the resumes. Yeah.
So,
Kind of a suggestion, John has submitted some criteria, he has 5 points, I think I submitted 7 points. Why don't you, Vicki, consolidate what's been submitted and we can present it for the next meeting as the criteria.
well, I guess, if this is the part that makes it hard for me, because those of you who did do the homework, categories and stuff that I ask, is this is the reason to not keep doing pushback and back meetings and back meetings and back meetings. So, I'm happy to consolidate the criteria that I have. John, I'll send his out. I can send mine out. I didn't send mine out. You have yours.
Yeah,
And
and you have your fine too.
well, yes, but I mean, so if there's no absolute criteria that anybody has come up with that we absolutely need. John's criteria probably sounds like the most definitive, more defined, sentences that were put together. I mean, I think I have some of the same things that he does, I've just worded it differently. So, I think that's fine to close this session of our open session, with this closing, that I will, if you'll send your criteria to everybody, and I'll do the same with mine, and Bill, if you have yours, you wanna send it, or you want me to take what I have and send it?
I can send mine too, but then it's all sent by email, and so what does that accomplish?
But we've already discussed a lot of the criteria that we're talking about, so, you have not mentioned a whole lot of your criteria, other, from your list.
I like John's list. I think the things that I would add from my list is whether the person is local or not. I think was one that I think is an advantage if somebody's local and could start tomorrow, as opposed to somebody who lives in Michigan and has to move here.
Well, the tangible benefits to the position, your applicant, philosophically compatible with the community,
And
comparable work experience. I mean, those are kind of all similar. I mean, I think that we all, have the same similar thoughts there.
and then we should come up with like, I just thought, why not just consolidate them and say, okay, this is our criteria, what do you think?
So then maybe that's the assignment then, is that we will send ours around, and it'll be on the agenda, for the next item, and but do we tell everybody what exactly we're looking for?
Did everybody get, Bill, both of your lists?
I haven't sent mine out,
I think
because we were gonna discuss it.
I only sent mine to Vicki.
Yeah,
I'll send mine out.
So would it be, yeah, I mean, we just.
And I'll send mine out.
Distributing material, right?
Right.
To look at, and,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah,
can
then we
discuss.
That's
the
it.
meeting.
Open meeting next
You
month.
want us to assign a committee for somebody to merge them?
No, because there's three of us that have already done our due diligence, and so the ones who haven't can add theirs, and then, you'll have all of them to look at, and then you can identify the 5 or 6 or whatever,
Come to the meeting
and come
and
to the
discuss it.
meeting to discuss.
Okay.
The only disadvantage to that is I thought that we wanted to go into closed session and start looking at the candidates at the next meeting. You cannot do that if you don't have your criteria.
Correct.
Well, and, the closed session today is,
Not today, I'm talking about at the next board.
Yeah, there is no closed session today.
Yes, there is. I need to.
Oh, you're closed
yeah,
session.
there
yes.
is, so,
And in closed session, then we can discuss the criteria.
Problem is that if you don't have your criteria established and agreed to, okay, then how are you in advance where you can take and put that yardstick up against each candidate? How are you, in advance, how are you gonna get together and discuss your candidates?
Well, at the closed session today, we can discuss our criteria. I think we all brought our list.
Oh, no, right, we can't discuss closed session and criteria, that's an open session item.
Criteria is an open session item.
yeah, I mean,
Candidates are closed session.
We just don't have a criteria yet, we haven't agreed on anything.
is there a motion to close this or to,
Move on to closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed?
well, I guess I'm asking to talk about this criteria. We need to make a motion that we accept, that we're gonna have this go through one more meeting and decide, and have, some concrete absolutes in the next open session. But then, it's okay, just, we're letting everybody know what we're looking at.
I make a motion that we take the criteria item on the agenda and move it to the next board
Refer to
meeting
the next meeting.
for final review and establishment of criteria for it.
Okay.
Evaluating the
What's the date of the next meeting?
17th, November 17th, for final review and approval.
and approval.
Yeah, I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only other thing I would like to do is if we are going to do that, folks, I am starting to get a little concerned about, the time here of, getting this process really moving along. And it is dragging a little bit. I think that's a problem. Again, we all have to kind of get in our own minds what we want. We may need to, at the next board meeting, set a special session where we can do something that will move this thing a little bit.
How about at the next session, if we have a closed session and each of us bring our 6 top candidates to the meeting?
How are you you can do that, okay? And if everybody,
And then the criteria that we agreed on during open session, we can apply to each of those candidates.
that's one way to do it.
Yeah, and see,
They would save time
well,
and get us moving.
Again, if you don't have your yardstick, in advance, it's really hard to do that, as you bring up your candidates, but it can be done. It can be done. I mean, we've done it that way before. I mean, I've done it that way.
well, and I guess that was kind of my thoughts in the closed session today, was to absolutely just go through and identify, I'm trying to be,
Those candidates.
the ones that are,
Better, the prospects that we want to
the
move
better- yeah.
farther along with on the application.
And then the ones that we're not considering or thinking about or have thoughts about, we can discuss in closed session and then, take it care of, and do that, and then save the,
Wasn't our closed session for today?
it was part of my plan for
I know, but
today,
it
Falls
wasn't
under
on that.
personnel.
personnel.
Well, that was yours, my
Well,
understanding.
they both
is
No,
fall
but
under personnel.
That was,
I just took it.
we worked together with that was,
Somebody
that was
else
the
decided
plan.
that. Okay.
No,
My understanding was this was just about your item, whatever it was.
well, I think it came down to that originally.
Right.
It was going to be the review of the applicants, but nobody felt they wanted to review the applicants,
Right.
but I still need a person.
So we took that out. Yeah.
I still think we could, as a first process, and maybe we have a second process and then a final.
So we'll review them just for.
Well, I tell you what, there would be one advantage I mean, one thing that we would learn from each other is, how we've gone about evaluating the candidates. And that will help us the next time we get together, because we will already kind of have a feel for, the process the thought process that we have gone through individually.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with the first discussion, the second discussion, and I agree with John, which is kind of, you just.
I'm teasing you.
Now, at the next meeting,
No, I think the first session should be in our closed meeting today, as well as with your personal stuff.
Okay.
And then we can do a second, at the next meeting.
How much longer do you expect to go?
It depends on how, I don't know that it would be a longer, 15, 20 minutes.
Probably not gonna get it done in 15 or 20 minutes.
No.
You don't think going through a first would be enough to
Maybe.
identify some
Maybe.
first discussion?
I can let you know which ones I don't have.
Well, I have them all, so,
before we do that, we need to.
we need to close.
Yeah,
So-
one thing that we need to do, and I think would behoove us, is as we do these closed sessions, even though we have identified the category that we're going to be in, I think we need more of a definition of what we're going to be doing as it relates to that. In other words, if Vicki has an item that she wants to discuss as it relates to personnel, don't explain all of it, but at least give enough awareness to what it's gonna be. And then we could also say a review of candidates, for need to go a little bit more than just
Yes.
throwing that out. And I think he made that clear today as
Yes,
he
he
was,
did.
yeah, so, I'm not concerned about what we got here. I think we can do what we need to do
Yes.
today. But I think for the future, it would be very helpful.
Well, and I think that's where I tried to, I think that's what I kind of discussed, but I didn't think of the first process, second process,
Sure,
the
right.
third process in my discussion with everybody. And then when Vicki reviewed all the emails, I'm sure that's where she come up with just the personnel for her own thing, because of the thoughts from everyone else that it was too soon to look at. So, is there a motion that we close this meeting?
Denise, you move to go into closed session.
Move to go into closed
Right.
session.
Oh, what, Bill? I'm sorry.
Bill, we've already started the process. Let me second that, and now discussion.
No. What is the discussion? So does this fall under that category of where after 72 hours, we have to let the public know the detail of what we're talking about?
I think anybody in closed session in 72 hours can come in and make a request to review the minutes. Unless,
Or is the 72 hours more proactive than that?
Well,
We have to
unless-
Publish something.
we subsection 13 and we decide that that's not to be done. And maybe that's criteria.
I think that to answer your question,
Yeah.
this is how I would answer your question. The answer would be that the board reviewed candidates and selected, and identified those candidates that they have interest in pursuing, and not listing any names or anyone else as it relates to that. I think that's all that needs to be said.
And our session minutes should only be taken to actions, not discussions.
Right,
So,
yeah, you don't have to put all the discussion into it.
even the regular ones are not.
Right.
So is the intent then to notify those candidates that we selected?
No,
No,
Then what's then this is kind of like.
this is the first
This
process.
is a toothless kind of discussion.
this is a kind of a, maybe, yes, it is a little bit of a toothless discussion, because what we can do then, Bill, is if there's somebody that falls in that category of questionable, and we want to have further discussion of that later on, we can do that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And we will be a little better prepared to do that.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
your thought,
Well, I
Madam
think,
President?
I think that's the first process, the second process, and the third process. And that was part of my thought process of doing part today, because there are several, and then in close to decide how to communicate to that.
Well, the first process won't have any communication.
There is no communication after the first process. I don't think there ought to be any communication until we get to a point where, you know, we begin the interviews and finish the interview process. I don't think we need to
I think,
maybe I'm wrong, okay, it's been a long time, but, you know, maybe people today, I mean, I'm sure that they would like to know right away.
well, too many people
Okay.
are ghosted, I think. and
Well,
not
I don't
given
think
any-
you're ghosting them. I think that they don't expect an answer in 3 days or 10 days or whatever. They know that this is a process, okay? If they have done any interviewing or made applications before, they know that it's not gonna, they're not gonna get an answer in a week. They're not, a month, 6 weeks, okay? So, I mean, that's common practice in the business world, okay? So I don't think we're ghosting anything. And I do appreciate your thoughtfulness of these candidates, but I think we're exceeding even their expectations.
Well, then I really think if we don't wanna do a first, second, or third process kind of thing, then I guess, what's the upside of delaying all of this then?
I don't have a problem with going through, I just don't feel like there's a need for notification at this point.
Only the ones who have been eliminated. I mean, there are some that,
I don't think there's a need to do that.
I think that just is troublesome, because if you eliminate somebody, then they can come back on you and say, well, I was wrongfully eliminated.
I don't know how they can do it, but just-
I don't know how they can do that, Bill, but, you know,
And I think, I think that this could also be a little further discussed, because we're still talking about personnel in a closed discussion, so, I still would like to hear a movement to, close the open discussion.
we've already got that. We just
Got
need
the
to vote.
motion. Yeah, just
Can we
need to vote.
take
If
the
there's
vote?
no further
If
discussion,
there's no further
You vote.
discussion,
any further discussion?
aye.
Aye.
Roll call, yes, roll call.
Adam, oh, sorry Denise, I went right by you. Adam,
Yes, I.
Bill,
Maybe,
question mark?
I,
Yes.
Okay, so, we're
We're in
agreed
closed
that we're
session.
gonna.
I need to turn that off.
Okay.
how many?
I'm sorry.
We're looking at now.